Giridvaradhari Jaya Gopijana Vallabha Giridvaradhari Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jabihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamunatiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paribrajagacharya Astottara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace Sabai Charanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koda Vaishnava Brinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sigaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhakta Brinda Ki Jai CC Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyam Kund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Srimati Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. All glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to the assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 5th canto, 1st chapter, text number 22. The chapter title, The Activities of Maharaj Priyavrata. So it's an interesting meter. The Radhika Raman Prabhu explains very nicely how the different meters they have in them, they're not just random. I wish I could explain exactly why this meter is here for these verses, but it means a shift in what is happening. There's a different modality happening in the Bhagavatam. There's something to be described slightly different from what has been described before. So it seems as a series of verses where this meter is being used. Please bear with me. I've not heard it chanted, so we'll have a go. So where do we go next? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 5.122. Manurapi parin. Manurapi parin aivam Paratishandita Manurataha Surashri Varanumatenatmajam Akiladara Mandalashtiti Guptaya Ashtapya Swayam Ati Vishama Vishaya Vishajala Shayasaya Upararama. There you go. Full marks for the Sanskrit pronunciations. Krishna Krishna. Interesting. It's here in two lines. It's in this version of the Bhagavatam that I've got. It's in 3 lines. Here it's only 2. So, word for word, Manu, Swayambhuva Manu. Api also. Parena by Lord Brahma. Evam, thus. Pratishantita executed. Manarata, his mental aspiration. That brings with me mental aspirations. That's usually the mental platform. Manarata, the rata, the vehicle or the platform of the mind. Sura Rishi Vara of the great sage Narad. Anumatena by the permission. Atmajam, his son. Akila of the entire universe. Dhara Mandala of planets. Stiti, maintenance. Guptaye, for the protection. Ashtapya, establishing. Swayam, personally. Ativishama, very dangerous. Vishaya, material affairs. Visa, of poison. Interesting. Of poison. Jala Ashaya, ocean. Ashaya, from desires. Upararama, got relief. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, Swayambhuva Manu, with the assistance of Lord Brahma, thus fulfilled his desires. With the permission of the great sage Narad, he delivered to his son the governmental responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planets of the universe. He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous poisonous ocean of material desires. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Swayambhuva Manu was practically hopeless because such a great personality as Narad was instructing his son Priyavrata not to accept household life. Now he was very pleased that Lord Brahma had interfered by inducing his son to accept the responsibility for ruling the government of the universe. From Bhagavad Gita, we get information that Vaivashvata Manu was the son of the sun god, and that his son Maharaj Ikshvaku ruled this planet Earth. Swayambhuva Manu, however, appears to have been in charge of the entire universe, and he entrusted to his son Maharaj Priyavrata the responsibility for maintaining and protecting all the planetary systems. Dara Mandala means planet. This earth, for instance, is called Dara Mandala. Akhila, however, means all or universal. It is therefore difficult to understand where Maharaj Priyavrata was situated. But from this literature, his position certainly appears greater than that of Vaivashvata Manu, for he was entrusted with all the planetary systems of the entire universe. So we get big posts, and we get even bigger posts, it would seem. Things seem to be very big in our, I'll use the word existential existence. I become the president, or I become the prime minister, or I become something, and we think it's very great. But here we're hearing of dimensions which are way beyond. I think in the previous verse it was said something like that. Lord Brahma returned to his abode, Satyaloka, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane mind or words. So what kind of post? Lord Brahma in Satyaloka or Brahmaloka, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane mind or words. And guess what? Lord Brahma's post is very small in relationship to the Paravyoma, or the spiritual existence, par excellence. So um, it's quite amazing how we all become very much surrounded by our position. And we'll talk more about that. Srila Prabhupada will explain more. So he was entrusted with all the planetary systems of the entire universe. Another significant statement is that Swayambhuva Manu took great satisfaction from abnegating the responsibility for ruling all the planetary systems of the universe. At present, politicians are very eager to take charge of the government, and they engage their men in canvassing from door to door to get votes to win the post of president or a similar exalted office. On the contrary, however, herein we find that King Priyavrata had to be persuaded by Lord Brahma to accept the post of emperor of the entire universe. Similarly, his father Swayambhuva Manu felt relieved to entrust the universal government to Priyavrata. I'll maybe look at the screen instead of my book. I'll try that, see if that looks so. Thus, it is evident that the kings and the executive heads of government in the Vedic age never accepted their positions for sense enjoyment. Such exalted kings who were known as Raja Rishis ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom for the welfare of the citizens. Now, I've mentioned this once before, but I once visited with Dinabandhu Prabhu his home in the Ukraine, in Kiev, I think it was. And we visited a very special place. The reason I'm mentioning this again is that it showed a reflection of the Vedic age, in that all the kings would retire. The kings in the Ukraine, emperors of the kingdom, they would retire to a place, and this was a monastery, and they had a whole system that up on the top, on the land level, there were ashrams and so many things going on in this monastery, and they had made caves somehow. I think it was a natural type of arrangement, but and then they excavated them further. But you could go underneath, and you went down into these caves, and there was little enclaves where rooms had been made, carved into the earth, and they were little like cells. It looked like little prison cells, but they weren't prison cells, but they were places where these emperors renounced everything at the end of their life and would be there performing their bhajan. It was absolutely amazing. And they had tombs in different places showing how this emperor, whoever he was, and here are his remnants. It was like a samadhi type arrangement. Very amazing place. So it shows the higher qualities of great personalities. Monarchs were not supposed to be despots. That's not the idea. They were the best of all the citizens. They had the qualities required to lead the people and protect the people. Leading the people meant to protect them. And that's like the actual quality of a Kshatriya, is that by nature he's a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Krishna says, Sarvadhamam parityagya mamikam saranam braja aham tvam sarvi papibhyo mokshayashami masucha. Abandon everything and surrender unto me. I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. I have this potency to protect you, to uplift you, to maintain you, to purify you. I have all the potencies required. Simply you surrender. So the king is the natural representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we see that in any civilization of the day, they would, just like in the UK, they still have a monarchy, or it's a paper tagger, so to speak. It's not got any power, but it's still there. And they have to pledge allegiance to the throne and to God. This is the idea, at least. I don't know if they've still got it. I'm sure they have to some degree. So, as the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the monarch then would provide the protection and shelter for those, especially for those who are following this spiritual way of life, to gradually come closer to God by their activities. So that was very nice to see. So I'll go back to the book because I get distracted by the screen in the book. I'll see engagement and canvassing. So on the contrary, however, we find at present politicians are very eager to take charge of the government. Wonder why? Because they're glorified, they become attached to that glorification, and they get all kinds of self-aggrandizement in the form of, as I say, uh, popularity and glorification and wealth. And we find this is happening again and again in the modern time. They've been found to be cheating and manipulating things for their own benefit. They somehow or other become a vice president or a president of a country, and lo and behold, they all of a sudden have this huge bank account, and they don't can't explain where the money came from, but they're giving favors here and favors there, and somehow or other, these people they give favor to somehow or other deposit money in different overseas bank accounts. We hear of it all the time, and then we find that they're being caught with their hand in the till, so to speak. So this is not real leadership. Everyone, the andaya tander upaniyaman astipesita triam urudamni bata. The blind man led by another blind man, and everyone ends up in a ditch. And the ditch is full of sense gratification. So we'll continue Srila Prabhupada's purport. So everyone's keen to win the post of president, and Prabhupada in another place says that they have to be shot dead before they will leave. And no one wants to leave. They want to keep this position. Hmm. On the contrary, continuing, however, herein we find that King Priyavrata had to be persuaded by Lord Brahma to accept the post of emperor of the entire universe. Similarly, his father Swayambhuva Manu felt relieved to entrust the universal government to Priyavrata. Thus, it is evident that the kings and executive heads of government in the Vedic age never accepted their positions for sense enjoyment. Such exalted kings, who were known as Rajarishis, ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom for the welfare of the citizens. And I'm pausing because it requires to pause and just really try and allow that to enter to the consciousness that they ruled only to maintain and protect the kingdom for the welfare of the citizens. This is inconceivable for the modern person to think of, that this is actually possible, that such persons would be existing. I better continue. The history of Priyavrata and Swayambhuva Manu describes how exemplary, responsible monarchs performed the duties of government with disinterest, keeping themselves always aloof from the contamination of material attachment. So this is introducing an amazing way of life where one performs one's duty in a perfect way. At the same time, he has a higher goal of life. He's not just taking a post simply for sense gratification in its various ways and forms, but he has a higher goal of life, a higher purpose. He wants to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Savaipum samparo dharmo yato bhaktirad hoksaje ahoitukiya pratihata ienatma suprasiditi. Supreme occupation for all humanity is that activity by which one can please the personality of Godhead. Such devotional service has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. The verses of the Bhagavatam in that second chapter explain that this is the real goal of life, is to please the personality of Godhead, and that will bring the pleasure that we desire. Not simply trying to directly enjoy the fruits of the material existence and sense gratification, but there's another way to gain the desired satisfaction, and that is to please the provider, the eternal provider. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam, that personality who provides for all living entities. And he does it through his representatives, and we're hearing about them now. Lord Brahma and Swayambhuva Manu, and now Priyavrata, they're all representing the Supreme Godhead in the universal government. Continuing, purport, keeping themselves always aloof from the contamination of material attachment. Material affairs have herein been compared to an ocean of poison. They have been described in a similar way by Srila Narottam Das Thakur in one of his songs. Samsara Vishanali Divya Nishi Yajhale Judaite na Kainu Upaya. My heart is always burning in the fire of material existence, and I have made no provisions for getting out of it. Kuleka Premadana Harinama Sankirtana Rati na Janmila Kinitai. The only remedy, that is, for getting out of it, is Hari Nam Sankirtan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is imported from the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. Now, I'm going to make another comment just here, if I may, that we think this is part of the mythology when we hear statements like this, that this holy name is the only way for escaping from this material tabernacle or entanglement. And we think, oh, this is some fictitious or some concocted idea that the chanting of Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is imported from the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. But this information is required. But when it's given, the person under the mode of passion and ignorance cannot understand it and sees it as something mythological. Poor fellow is trying to get freed, and he's not able to get freed from anything in the material world, but when he's given the opportunity, he can't understand it. And in this way, he's stuck. I continue. How unfortunate I am that I have no attraction for this, Narottam Das is saying, and this attraction for the holy name. Manu wanted to seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. And we have to make this comment that Manu, he's the emperor of the whole world, but he wanted to seek shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord. And therefore, when his son Priyavrata took charge of his worldly affairs, Manu was very relieved. That is the system of Vedic civilization. At the end of life, one must free himself from worldly affairs and completely engage in the service of the Lord. Now, we discussed this the other day in a gathering of devotees, and this idea of renunciation is taken up by all sincere devotees, whether we are in the Vanaprastha ashram, whether we are in the Sannyas ashram, or we are in the Grihastha ashram. We take up this mood of renunciation of the material existence. We left our jobs, we left our relatives and friends, we left our absorption in the material activities, and we took shelter of the lotus feet of the process of Krishna consciousness through the instructions of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. And that is the actual mood that must be taken up sooner or later, or in any stage of our life, that we are no longer interested in worldly affairs. We are not getting exhilaration and inspiration from being uh, situated in this material world in whatever way it may appear, but we are uh, taking full shelter of the process of devotional service to the personality of Godhead. And that is the great gift that is being offered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his representatives, uh, the acharyas. So, at least at the end of life, one must free himself from worldly affairs and completely engage in the service of the Lord. The word surarishi vara anumatena is also significant. Manu entrusted the government to his son with the permission of the great Saint Narad. This is particularly mentioned because although Narad wanted Priyavrata to become free from all material affairs, when Priyavrata took charge of the universe by the request of Lord Brahma and Manu, Narad was also very pleased. I was born in the darkest of ignorance. My spiritual master is forcing me to open my eyes with the torchlight of transcendental knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto his lotus feet. What an amazing book, the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is filled with the pastimes of the Lord and his devotees, and is giving us the process. The only remedy is Harinam Sankirtan, the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. In previous ages, there were other processes. We understand Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwarpa Yuga, and Kali Yuga. So there are different Yuga Dharmas, different activities performed, the great sacrifices in the, where were we? Try to remember, that's the Treta Yuga, mystic meditation, where there's practically no vice. In the Satya Yuga, in the Dwarpa Yuga, there is opulent temple worship. Everything is made of gold and silver and diamonds, jewels, and so on. We hear about the remnants of that Dwarpa Yuga still being able to be seen in some small way in India, even at this time. But those processes are for those ages and specific, and the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is an eternal mantra that is always there in all the ages, but it is the process that is recommended as a Yuga Dharma for the Kali Yuga, because we are not able to sit down for 60,000 years and meditate, because we only live for maybe 80 or 100 years at most. We can cross that one off the list. But there is a type of meditation that's, we'll discuss that a little more. This Maha Mantra is a meditation. And then the great performance of great sacrifices. Such arrangements require amazing facilities and performance of great chanting of great mantras and so on. So I won't go into all the details of them all, but we can see that those performances, and then the temple worship. One small story there. The temple worship, just to give you an example, if the temples are filled with gold and jewels, then it will attract so many thieves, plunderers, and that has been seen in the history of India, that the temples were ravaged by despotic rulers of different empires, and not the protection becomes a very great issue. So when there's opulence, then it requires to be protection. So the whole thing, as we see, is collapses more and more. So in the Kali Yuga, it's not at all recommended. So much so that in Melbourne Temple many years ago, 40 odd years ago, someone had purchased some silver jewelry for the Radhavallabha, the presiding deities of Melbourne Temple, and it was stolen. The jewelry items were stolen. And it was a great example of just that. And this wasn't, it was just some silver, but pure silver and worth something. Somebody stole that. It's inconceivable, but you can get the idea. It's hard to think that someone in a temple, maybe someone from outside, who knows? But that's the fact. So in this age, the processes have been simplified out of the causeless mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The process for this age is the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But we are so unfortunate, Lord Chaitanya says, that I have no attraction. And Narottam is also saying like that. How unfortunate I am that I have no attraction for this. So this is our difficulty. Uh, how to come out of this phalanx, like in the Mahabharata. It's Abhimanyu is famous for being able to, he had learned, he was only a young person at that time, he had learned how to penetrate through the phalanxes, the arrangements of the armies to cause havoc. But then to come out was too difficult, especially when he was surrounded by so many generals. Um, and he found it very difficult to come out. So we find it very difficult to come out of a entangled existence. And we hear, and even going, so we hear, even going back in this time, it was not easy. Swayambhuva is in great anxiety. He feels that he's, what is it called? The poison in the verse. The, po- the He thus achieved relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of material desires. So it's being described there, the poisonous ocean of material desires, that uh, those material desires keep us bound to the material repetition of birth and death. In the mode of goodness, our material desires may be very elevated and desires of pious results. But even if we perform activities in a pious way and are elevated to higher planets, again, Abrahma Bhuvana Loka Purna Avartino Arjuna, Lord Brahma is saying, from the highest planet, the Supreme Lord is saying, from the highest planet, Brahmaloka or Satyaloka, which is inconceivable to us. We mentioned that, isn't it? Mentioned in the verse before, which is indescribable by the endeavor of mundane minds or words. It's so wonderful to read Lord Brahma to his celestial abode known as Satyaloka, which is described here as being impeccable and being unapproachable by words. When we think, oh, you must be able to explain it, but it's not. It's just you won't be able to understand the the different dimensions of even this material world. So we may be in an environment which cultivates pious activities for elevation to higher planets, but even if we go to the highest, which is inconceivably wonderfully great, and which most people, even most devotees, would would go for when it's explained and all the descriptions are there. But the greatest souls, like Swayambhuva Manu, he's in this most exalted position, but he's seeing that even in that exalted position, he describes it. He wants relief from the most dangerous, poisonous ocean of material desires. So this is the whole process of Bhagavatam is described Nivriti Marg and Pavriti Marg. It's described in another place that Swayambhuva Manu enjoyed his life in such a way that was not contrary to the principles of religion, but still he wanted to, the latter stage of his life to become it was the word freed. Let's use the freed from his post of being the emperor. So somehow or other, he was feeling like that. He was feeling, I want to be freed from this, even though I'm engaging in so many nice things and doing the right thing. But I would like to not have this concept, the ahankara, that I am the emperor, these are my subjects. He wanted to go beyond that. Jivara Swarupoi Nichara Krishna Das, Krishnara Tatashta Shakti Beda Beda Prakash. The identity of the living entity is that we are eternally the servant of the servant of the servant of the ever self-manifesting ocean of nectar of the highest bliss, the master of the gopis, Lord Sri Krishna. Yeah. I'm not a Brahmin, not a Kshatriya, not a Vaishya or a Sudra. Neither am I a Brahmachari, a Grihasta, a Vanaprastha, or a Sannyasi. But I am Gopi Partu Padakamalayo Dasa Dasa Anudas. And that identification is that one is a very special identification because it talks of Gopi Bhartu Padakamayo. It's a very intimate um, uh, identity that we are in the Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, that we are in the mood following under the holding on to the lotus feet of such great personalities. Lord Chaitanya has come, and Lord Nityananda, like the sun and the moon and the horizon of Gaudiya, to bring the Yuga Dharma of the chanting of the holy name. And he's making it available to the he's Patita Pavana, they're the deliverers of the most fallen souls, the Jagais and Madais. And we are the Jagais and Madais. Everyone's Jagai and Madai, or worse than Jagai and Madai. And somehow or other we pinch ourselves. How am I, a conditioned soul, a wretched soul of the Western countries, the Malecha Desh, the Yavanas, but it's all possible. Kirata Hunanda Palinda Pulkasha Bhagavatam says that whether you're not even in the Varnashram system, you're coming from the Huns and the Palindas, the Greeks and the Germans and the Europeans and the Americans and the Australians down under and the Kiwis and whatever you may be, that this Yuga Dharma is available for us, and we have to take it up and we have to figure out exactly how to execute our life. Just like Swayambhuva Manu and Priyavrata. Swayambhuva Manu, we've talked a little bit about, he wanted out of the post. Some people say, why didn't he just stay and continue? But he didn't. He wanted to move out. But and then we've got Priyavrata. Somehow or other, by the will of the Supreme Lord, as we're hearing in this chapter, he wanted to remain a Naistika Brahmachari. But guess what? The head of the whole universe, the head of the Sampradaya, Brahma, Lord Brahma, came and convinced Priyavrata, because Lord Brahma is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that this is what is required. And we ask you to please take up this order of the Supreme Lord to rule the kingdom. So he finds himself in a difficult situation. He's thinking, hey, Narada Muni's just here and he's telling me that I should carry on, that I'm doing the right thing. So you could say it's a little complicated. Have we noticed that life's a little complicated? There are three modes of material nature. You think, no problem, goodness, passion, and ignorance. We can sort that out. But guess what? Just like the three primary colors, you mix the three primary colors and you get 3 times 3 is 9. You get 9 colors. 9 times 9, if you mix those colors, you get 81. Probably say thus be 8,400,000 species of life. Why not just, 100 species? Keep it simple. Why? Because the living entity is given all facility in all the species of life, unique differences in each species of life. So cooperation is required. We heard that in the fourth canto. The Lord was extremely pleased by the cooperation of the Prachetas. Prachetas were uh, living and serving so cooperatively in the administration. And now here in this fifth canto, we see the cooperation of advanced souls. Narad is preaching renunciation, as he is famous for preaching. Why not? That's the Nivriti Marg, the process of renunciation. Lord Kapila Dev is also in third canto. He's giving the clear idea of how to see everything as proper perspective and to be able to give up this connection to matter through the Sankhya philosophy. Devahuti is asking to Lord Kapila in that third canto. She's saying, I'm hearing everything that you're explaining. And what my conclusion is, she's a very intelligent lady. And she concludes that it seems that the connection of the soul, the Jivatma, to the material energy is inextricable. It's so perfectly connected that it seems impossible for the living entity who's embodied physically and mentally, intellectually, on all levels of existence, for him to come out of it. So Kapila Dev answers in a few verses after that question by Devahuti that yes, it is undoubtedly similar to Krishna with Arjuna saying it is undoubtedly difficult to control the mind, but it's possible. So it's possible, Krishna says, by constant practice in detachment. Find a position of detachment somehow or other and practice. And in a similar way, Kapila Dev answers his mother. He says, it is practically, as you're saying, impossible, but it's possible by constant hearing. So if we hear, that's why Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. And we think like that. We think, oh, have you read Bhagavad Gita? Yes, I read Bhagavad Gita. Very good book. When did you last read it? I read it 5 or 10 years ago. I read Bhagavad Gita. Oh, guess what? We have to keep reading it. Why? Because every day we require the bath, isn't it? I had a bath yesterday. I had a bath every day, 2 or 3 baths every day for the year. I'll skip 1 or 2. Why not? No, you have to bathe every day. So similarly, we have to bathe our consciousness and study. Isn't it? We heard the other day someone was making the point that that we have to not just read Bhagavatam, but then think it over. And that's the process of the Bhagavatam class, is to discuss what we've read and think it over and keep thinking it over until nighttime. And possibly along the way we'll hear other things and we can move on to some other Krishna conscious meditation. And then we'll hear the Bhagavatam verses again and we'll recite some slokas and we'll chant bhajan and so on. And this way we'll become madmen ultimately. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he spoke after he'd taken initiation from his guru, Srila Ishvara Puri, that this mantra you have given me, it's transformed me. I become like a madman. Sometimes I laugh, sometimes I cry, sometimes I find myself unconscious and like, what kind of mantra is this? Uh, and I become like a madman. And Shri said, this is very good that these symptoms are manifesting. It means that you are chanting very nicely. Uh, and this is a very good uh, idea. So in a similar way, we cannot imitate at all. I'm not please don't even think that I'm suggesting such things. But uh, by this process, we transfer our absorption of our consciousness from material life into absorption in spiritual existence and spiritual activity, spiritual life, to become fully absorbed. So much so that people think that. They think you're crazy people. All you do is chant Hare Krishna, talk about Krishna, remember Krishna. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, all the processes of devotional service. So that gradually there's nothing but devotional service. Because by understanding Lord Kapila's instructions and the instructions of the Acharyas, we see that there's nothing. Bhaktivinoda Thakur's famous statement, there's nothing but the holy name in the 14 worlds. There's nothing. There's only illusion that I am an emperor, I am a king, I am a husband, I am a child, I am any identity, the upadis, the false identifications that we temporarily exist under. And the whole process of devotional service is to be able to flow through all these stages of our existence and to come to this platform of full absorption. And that will be very good for us. I want to check the time. So we should finish soon. I'm just realizing. Mm. So I hope I've covered. So this cooperation is there. There's a beautiful verse. I'm going to I mention this verse quite regularly, but it just somehow or other appeared. It was so sweet. I was looking for this verse, and then I came across this paper that I'd written something. It was Prana Prabhu, and then my wife said it was just Prana Prabhu's um, anniversary from his departure last year. And I thought, oh, that's interesting because I just picked the Bhagavad Gita up and Prana Prabhu's service was there. And we so nice. And it was in this place. It's the last verse of the 11th chapter. And it says, my dear Arjuna, one who is engaged in my pure devotional service, free from the contaminations of previous activities and from mental speculation, who is friendly to every living entity, certainly comes to me. I'm going to read this just a little bit. It's such a beautiful part of the beginning of the purport. Prabhupada speaking, Srila Prabhupada, anyone who wants to approach the Supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the Supreme Personality, Krishna. Wow, that was just relates to what I was saying earlier. We're not wanting even to go to Vaikuntha. I mean, wherever Krishna wants and whatever our capacity, but it seems like Krishna wants us to go to the Krishna Loka planet. This must take, so that's us. Anyone who wants to approach the supreme of all the personalities of Godhead on the Krishna Loka planet in the spiritual sky and be intimately connected with the Supreme Personality, Krishna, must take this formula as it is stated by the Supreme Himself. Therefore, this verse is considered to be the essence of Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a book directed to the conditioned souls who are engaged in the material world with the purpose of lording over material nature and who do not know the real spiritual life. And it goes, it's such a beautiful purport. And the point I'm connecting this to, Krishna is saying, Srila Prabhupada is saying this is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. My dear Arjuna, one who's engaged in my pure devotional service, we have to learn how to do that. Free from the contaminations of previous activities. We understand in other places in Bhagavad Gita that is required. And from mental speculation, to give up speculating this and that and to accept the words of the acharyas. Okay, got that. And then, who is friendly to every living entity. It's very, very important statement. And that's why Prana Prabhu was such a loved devotee because he was friendly to everyone, and everyone was a friend to him. And in that way, he had so much loving experience between him and the devotees. And we said at the uh, ceremony at the temple on his departure that, you know, we can have one Jai Shila, fair enough, or one person, one of him and one of them. We can barely put up with one of each of us. But people like Prana Prabhu, who are friendly to every living entity, become the friend, and we could have hundreds and thousands of such persons, or millions of them, because they're eternal servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his devotees. So this friendliness is so important. We see this. So we've got Narad, who's wanting renunciation, but he understands how to act properly in the situation. His father, Lord Brahma, has come, and he's not envious. He's not envious by the instruction for Priyavrata. He is also pleased. Lord Brahma is happy to put things in their proper perspective, and Manu is happy that he's ready to renounce and go to the forest. It's time for him to do that. And Priyavrata is going to perform his pastimes of ruling and eventually going back home, back to Godhead. So I'm going to finish there. If anyone has any comment, question, or reflection, then please unmute and you can spend a couple of minutes. I'm sorry I've taken so long.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Who's speaking?
Yeah, this is Tushta Chaitanya.
Tushta Chaitanya. Thanks,
Yeah.
Prabhu.
You have related this text in so many angles. Coming up to the central point, how this execution of orders to be maintained from the superior authority, and how he is obliged by Lord Brahma, Narad, and his own father. So all from all three angles, he was being pleased to accept, because everybody made their own effort to make him understand the importance of accepting the grihastha, because it was the order of the Supreme. And you have taken so much of uh, examples from different angles, explaining the jugas, every jugas activities, and how they are important in that ages, and how,
Yes.
and explaining the other things which is very much enlightening is that how Canto 4, 5 and 3 relates to our everyday's life and every juga, how the cooperation, following instruction. So all these things are very important for our spiritual benefit. So we
They,
need
they,
to.
they, they are, Prabhu. And as you're saying that, I'm just thinking, bringing it all the way back to, again, we as individuals, we are all faced with this challenge that what to do. How do I execute the days of my life in a way which will bring the greatest benefit, pleasure to Prabhupada and the Acharyas, pleasure to the Supreme Lord, and be able to accomplish. So we're all faced with a similar dilemma. What is the best use like that? So it's a great dilemma to be faced with in one sense, because we certainly are trying uh, to come to Krishna. So that is glorious in itself. And we pray to the lotus feet of the Lord to please guide us on the step towards the supreme abode. So nice that this is.
Yeah, the similar situation we can find when Srila Prabhupada was asked how we can help, how you can help me. And Srila Prabhupada
Ah,
answered, only by the cooperation among yourself. And that is my wish. And this is the same type of notion we can see, some type of rules and regulation. The most
nice.
important to keep ourselves in the alignment of spiritual activity is only the cooperation. Hearing from the superiors, following the instruction, following the spiritual master. So all these things are very important to align ourselves with the prosperity of the spiritual activities. We ourselves can do anything. This is
Thank,
very,
thank you, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. It was, yeah, very nice. Can I ask if there's anything else? If anybody else has anything? Otherwise, we will finish because it's quite late.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you very much for unpacking this verse. Here we see this bit of conflict between the expectation of Narad Muni and also Brahmaji, but it's very nicely resolved because Naradji was he agreed with the Brahmaji's final decision without any ill feeling. So it's a lesson for us in the management. Sometimes I have to give some different direction and we might not agree, but it should be resolved very. Maybe you'd like to comment.
Oh, so, I think I struggle with that as much as anybody else. How to, I think one thing that comes to mind that I'm trying to practice is to, to try and see the good. It's so easy. I mean, I'm such an expert in being able to see the bad. I can see that really well. No matter, I can, yeah. But to actually see the good and then to glorify anyone who has good quality, it's such a science. Prabhupada called this process of devotional service the greatest of all sciences because we're challenged at every step to make valued judgments. How shall I interact with my wife? How shall I interact with my children? How should I interact with my work friends, my fellow devotees, my seniors, you look at every aspect we've challenged how to act in the proper way. And it's not an easy thing. That's the challenge of navigating our way through this world. So they say Trinada Pisinichina, if we can wear that around the neck in all circumstances and beg for forgiveness when we maybe take too strong a stand on something in management or say something that maybe offends someone. And so checks and balances are there. If we think we've made some offense, then we may talk to other devotees. Prabhu, I've said something like that. Maybe I shouldn't have, but maybe like that. So in a humble state of mind, we may not be even perfect in that for sure. But if we try to cultivate, then we should be able to hanging on to the lotus feet and begging for mercy come through, and then everything more or less is even our Srila Prabhupada, he gave the perfect example. He said, please forgive me to some of his god brothers and Brajbasis that were there, that please, I've spoken in a strong way. And they said, no, there's no offense at all, please. But Srila Prabhupada's mood was thinking that maybe I've sort of said some things that maybe have upset people. So he never gave up that mood of humility that, oh, I'm the Acharya, I'm the Prabhupada. But yes, he was the Acharya, he was the Prabhupada. And part of being the Prabhupada was that he was always meek and humble, and no one would take offense. I hope that's something. Hare Krishna. So I think we should finish there because I know it's gone past time. Apologies that I went so long. It's good to leave a little time at the end. Maybe next time I can try and do that. So we'll finish.
Yeah, we'll finish.
Sorry?
No, we'll finish here. Thank you very much. Okay.
Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Yay.
Very good.
पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो
नमो नमः
नमो
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय हिज प्रेस जय शिला प्रभु की जय
Hare Krishna,
प्रभुपाद
Srila
की जय गौर
Prabhupada ki
प्रेमानंदे
jai.
हरि हरि बोल ऑल कोटि हरे कृष्णा थैंक यू वेरी मच